The water was at Sarah's knees before she stopped screaming her husband's name into the rain. Thomas was gone, dead 8 days now, buried under the cottonwood tree, and still she had turned back toward the house instead of running for the hill. Neighbors on the ridge above the flood shouted at her to leave it, to let the house go. A woman did not run into a drowning house for a bag of cloth and a photograph, they said. She would die for nothing. Sarah went in anyway. She waded through her own kitchen with brown water pulling at her skirt like hands trying to drag her down. She grabbed the small bag from the shelf, then reached past it, into the flooded dark under the bed and pulled out Thomas's old boots, heavy with water, worthless to anyone watching from the hill. "Leave the boots, woman," a neighbor named Old Man Purdy hollered, his voice cracking with fear for her. "They ain't worth your life." Sarah did not answer him. She tied the boots to her waist with a strip of rope, hiked her skirt above her knees in front of God and every man on that ridge, and swam. When she dragged herself up onto the muddy hill, soaked and shaking, some of the men laughed, short and nervous, the kind of laugh that comes when a person does not know what else to do with their fear. A young farmhand shook his head like she had lost her mind. An older woman clicked her tongue and muttered that grief made fools of the sensible. Sarah sat in the mud, hugging a pair of ruined boots to her chest, and did not care what any of them thought. "They're all I've got left of him that still smells like him," she said quietly to no one. Behind her, the house cracked, groaned, and slid into the current, gone in the space of one breath. Nobody laughed after that. The stagecoach slowed beside her, and Sarah's whole body went stiff. 3 days on the road now. Her shoes were falling apart. Her stomach was empty. And here was a driver leaning down from his seat, smiling too wide, asking if she wanted a ride to Cedar Bend. Everyone she had passed since the flood looked at her the same way, like a lost thing, like something to pity or something to use. Sarah knew which one this man was before he even finished his sentence. "Climb on up," he said. "Plenty of room. We can work something out for the fare." Sarah looked at his eyes, not his smile. She had learned that much in 3 days alone. Eyes told the truth a mouth would not. "No, thank you," she said, and kept walking. "Now don't be foolish," the driver called after her. "Storm's coming. You won't make it another mile on them feet." Sarah did not turn around. She did not run either, though her heart hammered hard enough to hurt. She simply walked, one blistered foot after the other, until the sound of his wheels faded behind her. That night the storm he promised came anyway. Thunder cracked over the flat land and rain fell in freezing sheets. Sarah had no roof, no fire, no food but a fistful of wild berries eaten 2 days before. She pressed herself against a lone tree at the edge of the road and shook until her teeth ached. Somewhere out in the dark, a wolf howled. Then another answered it closer. Sarah's hand found a broken branch on the ground. She gripped it tight, though she knew a stick would do little against a hungry animal. She would not be dragged off this road without a fight, not after everything the flood had already taken. A light flickered through the rain far off, a campfire. Sarah did not know who sat beside it, could be worse than the wolves, could be worse than the driver. She walked toward it anyway, because the dark behind was certain, and the light ahead was only maybe the knife was in Sarah's hand before she even decided to reach for it. They had been on the road 2 days now, Sarah and this quiet cowboy named Jesse. He had given her his boots, his food, his fire. But trust did not grow that fast, not for a woman who had already lost everything once. So when 3 riders came out of the trees at dusk, blocking the road ahead, Sarah's fingers closed around the small knife hidden in her skirt pocket, the one she had carried since the flood. "Evening," the lead rider said. His eyes moved over Sarah slow and hungry, the way a man looks at something he thinks belongs to him already. "Ain't often we see a lady out this far with just one man for company." Jesse did not reach for his gun. He stepped his horse forward, slow and calm, until he was between Sarah and the riders. "She's under my protection," Jesse said, His voice was quiet, it did not shake. "Best you three ride on." The lead rider laughed. "Under your protection, that's a fine word for it." He nudged his horse a step closer. "Maybe we'll just take a look for ourselves." Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. She watched Jesse's hand rest, easy and unhurried, near his hip, not grabbing for the gun, just resting there, waiting. "I've buried men for less than what you're thinking right now," Jesse said. "Ride on, and none of us have to find out if I mean it." The silence stretched long and tight, as a rope pulled to breaking. Then the lead rider spat on the ground, muttered something under his breath, and turned his horse. The other two followed. In a moment, the sound of hooves faded into the trees, and the road was empty again. Sarah let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Her hand was still wrapped around the knife in her pocket. "You'd have really fought 3 men for me?" she asked. Jesse did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the empty road ahead. "Didn't have to think twice about it," he said. Sarah slowly let go of the knife. The ring fell from Jesse's shaking hand and rolled across the porch floor. Winter had passed. Spring had bloomed and gone. Now summer sat heavy over the 50 acres, and Jesse Coulter knelt in front of Sarah with a small ring he had spent 3 months' wages to buy, and he could not get a single word past his own throat. Sarah watched him fumble, watched the ring spin and wobble and drop onto the wood boards between them, and for one terrible second, neither of them moved. "Well," Sarah said softly, "go on and pick it up then." Jesse's face went red as a Texas sunset. He snatched the ring off the porch, and this time his hand found hers before it could shake loose again. "Sarah, what luck," he said, his voice rough. "I built this cabin 3 years back thinking maybe someday I'd have somebody to share it with. Never believed it'd truly happen, not to a man like me." He swallowed hard. "I ain't got much. 50 acres, a good horse, and a heart that's yours whether you take this ring or not, but I'm asking you anyway. Will you marry me?" Sarah looked past him, out at the land, the wildflowers, the cabin with its stone chimney, the place that had taken a starving, broken woman off a lonesome road and slowly, quietly made her whole again. She thought of Thomas, buried under a cottonwood tree that no longer stood. She thought of the flood, the wolves, the men on the road who had wanted to take instead of give. And she thought of a cowboy who had shared his fire and asked for nothing back. "Yes," Sarah whispered, then louder, laughing through sudden tears, "Yes, Jesse, yes." Jesse slid the ring onto her finger with hands that still trembled, though not from fear this time. Somewhere behind them, the sun dropped low and gold over the 50 acres, lighting the porch, the cabin, and the two of them together. Sarah Whitlock, who had once lost everything to fire and flood, had finally found the one thing no storm could ever wash away again. Home. All 4 parts are now written in this Tutta, hook-driven style. You have the complete rewritten story in scenes from the flood to the proposal. Let me know if you'd like me to combine them into a single document.